Hi everyone. In this lesson, we will touch on a lot of things I recommend everyone watch. Let's dedicate the first part of the video to beginners. I have divided the video on a timeline, and you can skip the beginners part if you are an advanced user. Let's consider new modes of projection curves. I will show you how you can make a mirror on a projected object and on projections. Most of the video will focus on the projection modeling addon, working in conjunction with the curve work addon. The curve work addon has received an update with optimisations for working with projection modeling. This will be offsetting curves in real time. Using many functions, including Boolean functions on curves, I will also show some elements of projection modeling perhaps that you missed out on. I'll try to touch on everything in this video that you might find useful. I'll start with the rookie problems. To see the orientation of the object, you need to enable Move mode on the T panel. But right now you still can't see the orientation of the object because you have global mode, switch to local orientation mode, and then you can see the orientation of the active object. Also, if you've done everything and you still don't have orientation arrows, then you have gizmo disabled. Just turn it back on. You can also enable the Move checkbox in the gizmo settings, and then you don't need to enable Move mode in the T panel. You can choose what you prefer. I'm more comfortable like this. When you rotate an object in object mode, your local axis is also rotated. When you rotate an object in edit mode, your object orientation is not rotated. So if you rotate in object mode, you don't need to click on orientation correction after rotation. But if you did it in edit mode, don't worry, the orientation correction button will do it all for you. At the top, you can see the curve work addon panel. Here we have also added buttons for orientation correction. Let's arrange the projections of our curves so that the blue arrows conditionally intersect each other. If the blue arrow points in the other direction, use the function to rotate the origin by 180 degrees in projection modeling. This function is called 180. When you select an object with a left mouse button, it becomes active and you can see its orientation. When you select an object with a frame, it does not become active, and you still see the orientation of the active object. The active object here gets a white border on the icon. To see the local orientation of the object, select the object by clicking the left mouse button. If you have any difficulties, please contact me. Now let's get to what I have planned. Let's create a projection model. I updated the addon. The default ray length has been increased to 10. Modes for changing projection curve were also created. 2D fill is the default mode you've been using all along. The pure curve mode, which is slightly different mechanics for creating a projection object, it doesn't fill the curves themselves. I've also noticed that this mode has almost no errors, so I suggest getting used to it, especially if you plan to use the curve work features. To change the mode, you need to click on the projection object. You can change the mode at any time. Now we're going to look at how the curve work addon works in conjunction with the projection modeling addon. I think we should turn on cavity so we can see better. If you go to the Preferences menu of the Curve Work addon, you will see, firstly, hotkeys, which can be changed or disabled by unchecking the checkbox, as well as an active optimization function for projective modeling. I'll show you what it looks like now. Let's do a regular bevel on a curve. Let's take a step back and do the same thing without optimizing curve work functions for projection modeling. Let's bring back optimization. You can also now make an offset and immediately see how it looks on the projection object and customize it. You can familiarize yourself with the features of the curve work addon in the video dedicated to this addon. To delete an offset, just hover over the spline in Edit mode and press L to select the entire spline and then delete it. In 2D fill mode, most of the curve work functions work with errors. This happens because of the triangulation of the Blender fill into 2D curves, which leads to overlaps and errors when points intersect with edges. Theoretically, you can find these points, and by shifting them a bit, you can get rid of this error, but I recommend using the clean curve mode that is provided to avoid this error. In pure curve mode, there is no this error. Now, we will consider several options for working with the mirror and projection modeling. First, let's select half of the curve, subdivide the segment in the middle, and simply delete it by selecting the entire left side. Switch to Object mode and make a mirror on the curve. Select the axis to reflect, disconnect the unnecessary one. In this case, we had an unconnected part in the middle, so we use the Connect checkbox and our points will connect. You can control the distance with the origin offset. You can also close the edges. I equalize the edge with the segment type function. Let's do the mirror again and disconnect the axis we don't need. The thing is, in order for the mirror to work, you need to check the Apply checkbox so that these objects are immediately merged. That's the only way it works with the curve mirror. The default connect function uses Apply to work, so you don't have to check Apply when you use it. Another way to use a mirror is to add a mirror modifier to the projection object. You can control the distance by moving origin. Enable origin mode, and now you move the origin of the active object instead of the object itself. Don't forget to disable this mode afterwards. In this method, you can manipulate your curves, and they will work like a mirror on a projected object. You can also make a mirror in other axes as well. Now you can do something like this. You can also use the bevel. Keep in mind that you have 1/4 of the object, so there's no point in applying bevel to the edges that join in the mirror. We can't see the top part, it doesn't fall on the intersection. At the request of users, I have included several options with 3 beams. To connect the third ray, you must select a new curve and an active projection object, and press plus the third ray. Let's go straight to the pure curve mode. Enter the 2 curves editing mode. So you can control, I think I got a bit wrong, because the 2D film mode can add to your errors because of this mistake. Just select the points that should be flat and make them vectorized. For pure curve mode, this is not an error, let's move on. Many beginners do not understand how to use a magnet. The default mode is probably increment. You need to change it to vertex mode. Look at my magnet settings, and if you have a different one, set it up the same way I did. Select the points, then press G and the axis you want to align to. In this case, Z, hold down the Control key and move the cursor to the points you are aligning to. We will align to the points of the other curve. Let's offset the curves. Yes, the more complex the projection object, the lower the performance of curve work functions. I'm still thinking about a solution to this problem, but for now, I've made this option. In the preferences of the curve work addon, there's a hotkey next to the optimization checkbox. Now I'll show you what it does. I mentioned in one of the tutorials that you could disable the projection object, and this will eliminate all hangs on complex objects. If you have an active curve that is involved in the projection object, the function will switch your projection object on and off using a hotkey. Let's go to edit mode. This feature is in the curve work add-in and will be expanded to work with my other add-ons in the future. If offset has created some extra points, you can remove them using the decimate function by selecting the points you want to remove and setting the value to 0, or by selecting all the points and decreasing the slider continuously. If the curve doesn't turn out quite the way you wanted, you can play around with the segment type functions. See the curve work add-in tutorials for more details. Also, one of the subscribers asked about the beam tilt. Let's start by removing the third beam to keep it out of the way. I think we should remove the inside curve. Just turn and move a little bit of point control, and you can do anything. Let's make a projection object. I'll show in 2D fill mode, so you can see the Booleans function better, but again, you'll have fewer errors in pure curve mode. First, I'll show you the split point function. Highlight the points you want to split and click on this function. Now this part is separate, I'll just delete it. Just close the contour and remove the extra points. Now we're going to do it again. I'll set the 3D cursor to the top curve to make it more convenient. The 3D cursor buttons are taken from the Curve Loft add-in. Add a circle and align it. Shrink it down a bit. Add a rectangle and customize it. You may have noticed that most of the add-in's extra object curve appear in edit mode. Be aware of this. But here in the settings, you can uncheck the edit mode, and it will switch to object mode. Let's use this panel and configure our rectangle. Let's lift the curves a bit to make them more prominent and combine them with a Boolean operation on the curves. Now we will make a Boolean difference function on the projection curve. Select your curve and make the projection curve active. Most importantly, don't forget the basic rules for working with Boolean operations on curves. If you have any errors, just switch to pure curve mode. Add a circle and connect it to one of our collections. One of the opportunities you may have missed, don't forget the orientation. Determine which collection we need to add the curve to. Select a new curve and press plus. In general, yes, you don't have to have all curves of one projection collection at the same angle. You can tilt them. I hope you remember that possibility and the possibility that it can all be duplicated. As always, let's start by creating a projection object. He'll have a third ray. This is what we got. I'll remove the protruding rectangles and try to make an array. Just add a rectangle and align it. Correct orientation. Find the right collection and add our rectangle to it. Now we can make an array curve. Let's set up the array. I think I should have disabled the projection object to make the process smoother. I'll show you what that's about. This array are duplicates of the curve, and you can edit them in real time. You can change the point's curve, move them around, extrude them. Make subdivide. It is different from the standard. If you watch the curve work addon video, you will understand it. Let's make extrude. I'd like to show another common question. Let's apply the duplicates. Just select one of the duplicates and click Apply if you need to. You can tick the box and delete the duplicates or merge them into one curve. If you leave everything blank, they will just become separate objects. Frequent question is how to move objects away from each other without distortion. If you enable location mode, remember your objects must have origin in the middle of the object. Then by selecting two objects and pressing S, and selecting the axis, you can move the objects evenly away from each other without distortion. Just don't forget to switch off location mode when you're done. The last thing we'll look at today is a circular array of curves. A little closer. Create a circular array of curves. You can customize it any way you want. The most important thing about this method is that each curve of the circular array is a duplicate and is quite convenient to use. I'll change the orientation to normal to move the points more evenly. This type of control is quite interesting and convenient. And when you need it, you can select one of the duplicates and apply it just like it was done in the part about the regular array. Also keep in mind that we are talking about projection modeling, not just solidify. I will change the segment type. If there is not enough grid, I will subdivide this segment, and then it's up to your imagination. This sign looks familiar to me. It can also be subdivided, extruded, and even overlaid. Thank you all for watching. Training videos are quite difficult to record. I will be very happy to have your support. If you liked it, leave your feedback or comments. It helps a lot. See you in the next video.